The Global Quran, a dynamic comprehension, a human perspective. Chapter 1, The Cow, Part 7.2, Social and Legal Obligations, Beliefs and Personal Values in Relationships. Briefing to Chapter 1. This chapter of the Quran signifies the characteristics of people based on which the Quran calls them the blessed or the disgraced. The two categories are symbolized via examples taken from Bani Israel, who appear to be the descendants of Prophet Yaqub, or Jacob, the grandson of Ibrahim, or Abraham. The blessed are described as those who are honest with their faith and with people. They possess scholarship, demonstrate excellence in character, and apply justice to resolve matters without discrimination. The disgraced are described as those who either negate facts or are hypocrites, who act as believers and distort the truth for the sake of control and power. Review of Parts 1 to 7.1. Parts 1 to 6 describe the uniqueness of God in terms of the unique and evolving natural and social systems that God created, and the importance of education. Qualities of people, called the blessed or disgraced in the Quran. The transfer of leadership from Bani Israel to Bani Hashim. Distortions in previous books updated in the Quran, and how to identify and avoid possible distortions in the Quran. Part 7 addresses the concepts of some rules and obligations regarding fasting, Hajj, Qisas, which is compensation, and relationships via case studies that can be extrapolated to the current standards of contemporary times with justice and scholarship. Introduction to Part 7.2. Verses 204 to 245, Social and Legal Obligations, Beliefs and Personal Values versus the Law. False communication leading to distortion. This section starts with identifying a specific feature of the disgraced, inspiring communication for the purpose of distortion. Such people think that no one can see hidden hypocrisy behind beautiful words. Powerful people use that to create social instability that affects generations. The Quran calls it a major crime and assures that such people shall pay it off. On the contrary, the blessed prove their words by giving up their genuine desires, pleasures, and even their lives to establish social stability and save future generations from upheavals and injustice. For example, please read The Prophet's Heir, the life of Ali ibn Abi Talib. The Quran substantiates that these are the ones who deserve incredible rewards. False beliefs. It has been asserted that genuine believers follow the Quran's directions with reasoning, regardless of their personal interests. Those who don't are following the footsteps of Satan, a symbol of negators. The Quran further assures that people negating or finding loopholes to distort the truth, thinking they are too powerful to be accountable, must remember that God is more powerful and knows well how to overpower the powerful. Delaying matters for the purpose of injustice. One of the hypocritic features the Quran identifies and disgraces is making excuses to resolve matters with justice, saying we should leave it to God. Such people actually do not believe it would happen to serve their own interests. The Quran warns that this shall happen exactly how it happened to Bani Israel, who were blessed with books of guidance and wisdom to solve matters with justice, which they did not follow. Eventually, their social and religious structures collapsed. Hence, it has been warned that it is only the nobility, applying the Quran honestly with reasoning and transferring the message correctly to the next generations, that shall be rewarded with sustenance in ways no one can estimate. Differences in beliefs are created on purpose. According to the Quran, all human beings have been created to survive in accordance with nature that follows certain unique principles. In the beginning, when humans learned to form social systems, they naturally had differences in opinions for legal and ethical matters. Hence, God sent guidance in the form of messengers and prophets with judicial laws for a peaceful coexistence. It has been elucidated that when their successors, like Bani Israel, took over the leadership, they created distortions in laws in order to create confusion and divide people to empower them. The Quran gives clear directions to the believers to stay away from such leaders and apply their own knowledge and reasoning with honesty to understand the Quran. Staying determined in hard times. Honesty comes with hardships. The Quran warns those who stay honest in good times and show selfishness in difficult times that if they think they will be rewarded without being tested for their efforts in the right direction in hard times, then they are misunderstood. Examples have been given of those who failed and had started deviating from honesty when they faced adversities and sought comfort at the cost of truth. They are also called the disgrace. Support for dependents. In response to questions regarding supporting the dependent family and the needy, the Quran advises that it includes first, the dependent parents. Dependency could be of any type, financial or social or due to illness or a disability. And relatives, immediate kin, orphans, then anyone who is needy and deserving. These people should be supported genuinely so as to make their lives better. Any display of the support should be avoided, believing that God knows what they intend and do. Protecting the sanctity of sacred months. The Quran forbids war in certain months, namely Rajab, Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hajj, and Muharram, and emphasizes its implementation by all means, with no excuse permissible to initiate any turmoil in these months. Referring to an event where people were forced to get out of the Kaaba during worship and pilgrimage, it has been asserted that creating turmoil is even worse than initiating an open war. It has also been warned that evil forces will keep enforcing war with the best of their capability in these months. People should acknowledge their wickedness and political conspirations and hence not be overwhelmed by their attempts. Rather, they should stay strong and well prepared to abolish their malevolent efforts beforehand, otherwise their struggle to keep peace would be wasted. Drinking and gambling. The Quran assures that God is kind and compassionate to support those who make their best effort to follow God's commands even if they have to suffer. In response to questions about drinking and gambling, the Quran has prohibited them, even if they turn out to be profitable businesses. It has been warned that there is more harm to the society than profit in these businesses, which is gradually being realized by law enforcement agencies. For those who do that making an excuse to support the needy, are advised to spend on the needy what is left from their legit earnings after fulfilling their needs. In this way, the Quran refutes any lame excuses to make sure that the money is earned legitimately and spent thoughtfully on personal needs so that it can be shared with the needy. Responsibility for orphans. In response to questions regarding orphans, we are directed to make genuine efforts to reconstruct their lives so as to enable them to become active citizens, which means that they can contribute to the socio-economic survival of the country. For those who just portray to be caring for orphans while the actual effort is absent, it has been warned that God can differentiate between piety and display. It has further been added that God could have put stricter conditions to treat orphans fairly, making it more difficult for you. Instead, you have the freedom to support them as you afford. In this way, God has devised the rulings very thoughtfully to make it easier for you to support orphans. Marriage obligations. The Quran recommends step-by-step procedures to initiate, maintain, or if needed, terminate marriage relationships in an amicable and constructive way. It is advised that people should marry those whose beliefs align with their own beliefs. It has been further added that someone at a lower financial and social status having compatible beliefs will turn out to be a better partner than someone of an equal or better status but different beliefs. In most cases, marrying someone with different beliefs would create problems in developing the relationship instead of making an ideal home. Men are strongly directed to initiate and maintain marital relationships with their wives in a natural and caring manner, respecting their health conditions and willingness in marital affairs, not forcing it on them, and staying away from evil desires. They are also advised to apologize for any wrongdoing sincerely, remembering that God rewards for repentance and purification from wrongdoing. Both men and women are directed to cultivate the best marital environment. They should remember that they will be accountable for their actions. They should trust God that this advice is the only working solution for an ideal marital relationship. Verbal disputes. People are warned not to go against God's rulings in verbal disputes. They must remember that God hears what they say and knows their intentions. It has been clarified that any vows made against God's rulings would be meaningless for separation or divorce purposes, and they shall be accountable for their intentions and actions based on these vows. God is compassionate and kind to everyone, and does not discriminate between men and women. Separation and reconciliation. For those who wish to separate from their spouses, there is a waiting period of 4 months to make a final decision. During this period, if they realize their mistakes and decide to reconcile, they are allowed to do that. God is kind enough to forgive them for their mistakes as long as they wish to reform. If they are still determined to separate, then they should do it amicably, remembering that God hears even the feeblest voice of their hearts and knows their intentions. Divorce. After divorce, women are directed to wait to reveal any pregnancy before they remarry. It is illegal for them to conceal it. The Quran gives them equal rights to make decisions like their husbands have. However, in case of pregnancy or existing children, if their current husbands want to stay with them amicably, then they have the priority to take the responsibility than anyone else, provided they intend to reform. The Quran calls it a thoughtful advice from their kind God, in order to preserve justice for an ideal home. The procedure for divorce. It is directed to complete the divorce process in 3 steps. After the first 2 attempts of expressing the intention, they may mutually decide to reconcile provided they intend to reform, or make the 3rd expression, which completes the process. The process should be carried out amicably. Men have no rights to take anything from their wives unless it is a requirement of justice, decided by the court. In case of injustice from any side, it is legitimate to retain some assets or claim monetary compensation from the party responsible. It has been already mentioned before that the Quran does not discriminate between men and women to apply the laws, and God has put limitations on each to serve justice, and anyone crossing these limits would be treated as an oppressor. The obligations of divorce. The Quran advises that men should not decide to live with women to hurt them, physically, verbally, emotionally, or psychologically. If they decide to stay with them, it must be in a respectful manner to reform the relationship. If they don't go for reconciliation, then they should leave women with respect. If they keep them out of malice, for example, to take revenge or to prevent them from remarrying someone else, then they would be considered oppressors, ridiculing God's commandments. Secondly, people of the society are also directed to not prevent women from remarrying as they wish. This is a legal and pious way of living. People may not realize its worth, but God does. They should trust God and remember that there shall be consequences for not following God's commands. Remarrying the same spouse. Once divorce occurs between a couple, they cannot remarry unless the woman marries another man, and a natural divorce occurs between them as per rules described above. This is a consequence the couple has to face if they make a hasty decision to end a relationship that may have needed time to develop or reform. Remarrying each other shows that matters could be resolved. Infants of divorced or separated mothers. According to the Quran, mothers are directed to complete 2 years of lactation themselves, unless there is a health condition preventing them. During this period, the fathers must take full responsibility for the sustenance and well-being of the mother, no matter if they are together or not. She should not be hurt or abused. Neither should the father be abused for things he can't afford. If he passes away during this time, his care should fulfill this responsibility. If the parents mutually decide to end the lactation period earlier, they can. They can have the lactation carried out by another woman, in which case the father should pay for her sustenance according to his capability, honestly, remembering that God knows and witnesses what they do. Who is the heir? Family matters could be complicated for Muslims living in secular or non-Islamic countries. For example, the Islamic definition of heir could be different from that of the state. To resolve such matters, a representative office of the Quranic law should be there to nominate a heir in accordance with the state or country laws. It is evident that the Quran has prioritized justice in all matters, without discrimination. Hence, according to the Quran, a decision made by the judicial system of the state must be followed. Family matters decided by the state or court. A recent research has identified that numerous family matters never come to a resolution due to ignorance, comparing the Quranic laws versus the state laws. It has been added that the absence of an office of the Quranic law in a state authorized to second the state decision is a major factor contributing to devastating lives of millions of women, while their husbands or ex-husbands enjoy their lives making families with other women in the name of Sharia. Based on referrals from imams, scholars have clarified that since legal matters can only be decided by local authorities or rulers that are accessible to people, the final authority to resolve family matters is the judicial system of the state, and a verdict of state has an equal status of an Islamic ruling. Divorce before forming a marital relationship. This is the case when a separation occurs immediately after the marriage contract is signed, before consummating the marriage. In this case, the Quran advises a respectful separation and a kind behaviour from men, asking them to give something to their wives as a gift if the meher was not fixed, according to their capacity, considering it an obligation. The meher is an obligatory gift from the husband to the wife, paid at the time of marriage or is deferred according to her demand. If a meher was agreed, men are directed to pay half of it in goodwill, unless the wife forfeits willingly. It has been added that those who pay the meher in full will be considered more virtuous, since generosity and kindness are the preferred mode of separation. Generous and kind people are declared honourable in the eyes of God. Marrying widows and divorcees. Women are directed to wait 4 months and 10 nights before they remarry to reveal the pregnancy. After that, they can decide what is good for them. God knows and is aware of what everyone does. The Quran asserts that there is nothing wrong for men to offer their hands to widows and divorced women, but they should not make any promises in private other than what is legal and doable. Also, it is directed to not sign the marriage contract until the woman reaches the post-divorce term. In case of a mistake without intention, with no adverse outcomes, they should get the chance to apologize. Rights of widows and divorced women. The Quran states that following God's directions is the way one can guarantee that their prayers would be accepted, particularly the afternoon ones. If someone does not pay respect to God's rulings and recommendations, then they are not the true followers. Men are also directed to leave a will for their wives to stay in their homes and arrange for their sustenance in case of their demise. If women decide to move out, they have the right to do so. God has made these laws thoughtfully and compassionately. Divorced women must also be given some obligatory support. Conclusion. This section highlights to stay generous and compassionate with the family. The Quran also includes parents in the family who must be served for any kind of support they need. The support must also be extended to the divorced wives, needy siblings, kins, widows, relatives, and the disadvantaged, without the fear of survival. For those who forego their responsibilities out of any fear, it is advised for them to trust in God for their survival and follow God's commandments. The Quran calls generosity and sacrifice as lending to God, and reveals that it is multiplied many times in return. God promises limiting or expanding anyone's sustenance as they treat others. What goes around comes around. Limitations of state laws. It is also important to note that state laws are limited to the geography of a state. In case a family matter crosses the boundary of a state, for example, someone flees to another state to dodge or avoid the state law, the Office of the Islamic Law, being a global Muslim entity, must be authorized to either bring them back and serve the justice in the state of origin or in the state of his destination, coordinating with the Office of the Quranic Law in that state. Hence, an Office of the Quranic or Islamic Law must be present in every state to work with the state where the state law fails to serve the justice due to geographical boundaries. In this way, the globality of the Quran can provide justice to a greater extent if the state law has any limitations. Points to ponder. Research has shown that misunderstanding the Quran is leading to discrimination and injustice. This can also be seen in Islamic countries and could be a major cause for their people migrating to non-Muslim countries where they see better judicial systems. Hence, Islamic laws can function only if they outperform the state systems in justice. It is obvious in this section that the Quran has given clear laws to resolve family matters amicably, provided they are understood with scholarship and applied with honesty. This requires an excellent level of integrity and scholarship to apply the laws. An Office of the Islamic Law with such officials will be a great help to the state where the state has limitations, provided its officials are citizens of the state and are well familiar with the environment in order to offer better solutions when needed. References: Quran translation by Ali Quli Karai. Quran translation by Ayatollah Dr. Niaz Muhammad Hamadani. Balagh al-Quran by Sheikh Mohsin Najfi. Quran-e-Mubin by Dr. Sayyid Hassan Rizvi. Quran translation by Abdullah Yusuf Ali. The Legacy Quran. Legal Divorce by Ayatollah Dr. Niaz Muhammad Hamadani in Urdu. Understanding the Experiences of Muslim Women within the Australian Islamic Divorce Process by the Muslim Women of Australia.